So my name is Janely Miles. I am the professor for this semester. There are two sections. We had a few people that needed to use it for their graduation for the spring, so we had to have a couple sections. So I appreciate those that were able to change out their sections. So one of the things that this course is it talks about historic preservation and restoration. And what it really is it's about architecture, it's about design, but more importantly, it is about understanding the importance of why historic preservation is in desperate need of understanding within the community. And whether you're in interior design, architecture, or just have an interest in history, this class kind of touches upon a lot of those subjects. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about and is just kind of general overview of the class. And can I get a thumbs up for those that can see the screen? Perfect. Okay. So you're going to first start here. It says start here. And this just basically is going to go over, it's an introduction to the class. So, and to myself. And so a brief introduction, if you haven't read this already, is that I've been working in this field for over 18 years. I currently live in San Antonio. I lived in Salt Lake for about 14 years prior, but I've also worked kind of all over the country. I went to design school in San Diego, and then I've worked, from New York to DC to Phoenix to Seattle, all these different places I've had the opportunity of working. And in each of those places I've worked, I've always had my hand kind of in the historic districts. And so I was able to participate in a lot of amazing projects of restoring historical homes or buildings and whatnot. I won a few awards in doing so, and it's something that has become a big passion of mine. I loved history growing up, and then I loved design, and so I put my two passions together. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm also a children's book author as well, and that's something where I also like to teach kids about science and history as well. So that's something that else about me. Also on the side, I am actually writing the textbook for this class through a major publisher in New York, which hopefully will come out next year, because we're finding that there's a lot of people that are having interest in historic preservation. It's something that, when I started doing this, almost 2 decades ago, it was something that not a lot of people were super interested in. Some people had ideas of history that they liked, but ultimately, in the last 10 years, there has been an upswing of people that are more interested in preserving the history around them versus building new. And there's a lot of advantages in doing so, and you'll learn those advantages in this class. So that's just kind of like a brief introduction of what this course is. The structure of the course, the course itself is considered, again, it's online. I'm doing this as, this is our really only Zoom class that we're going to be doing today, and it's just kind of the introduction. But really what it's going to be doing is we have modules just like today is on Thursdays, and they're going to be set up every Thursday. So your quizzes, tests. So think of it that your class starts on Thursdays. So that's just something to just kind of know that every Thursday you're going to have your module open. But I'm open. My office hours are usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so if you have any questions, sometimes with the projects, I will FaceTime you guys, or we'll do a Zoom meeting or whatever you guys need. But those are usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. So reach out to me. You'll be able to see my contact information in the syllabus. And that's, why don't we go to that syllabus now? Let me get back to the home screen. So with that syllabus, hopefully you guys have kind of looked at it. One of the biggest things I want to go over today is the book. So we have technically 2 books that you're needing. You're able to get them in 2 different places. The first half of the semester, we go over kind of the general history of historic design and architecture and the laws behind it and everything that goes with that. And then we talk about preservation techniques, where we hit just kind of just a little bit of the iceberg. In reality, historic preservation is its own entity in most colleges, and it's usually graduate level colleges. And so a lot of the stuff that we take is just kind of a good introduction. And then I've had students move on to different universities that they really enjoy this, that this has become their passion as well. And so they then go in learning, deep diving into all of this. So that's the first semester general overview. Second is a little bit more of those techniques. And again, it's just kind of like tip of the iceberg, because those techniques what I try to focus on are things within the United States. Some of those techniques, they are spanned from places from all over the world, because America has always been kind of a melting pot for historic architecture and design. And so they bring a lot of those techniques with them. So again, that's what the second half of the semester touches on. So you'll be needing 2 books. So make sure that you get this historic preservation. There's 2 links here where you can get that, and then another link here for the second book. So make sure that you, at least before the midterm, that you have the second book ready to go. This is just kind of general overview. The grading is pretty normal to the department's online etiquette. The department did actually add this part when we're talking about there's certain things in terms of AI. And this is kind of the department's view on AI and how it should work. We do things that in terms of we'd use some research papers and things like that. And I've told students in the past, you're welcome to use things to do research on, but you have to cite it. It's like if you were to look it up in an encyclopedia or whatever it is, you need to just make sure that you cite your sources. So anyway, and then the weekly schedule, this is subject to change, but it usually stays on track pretty well. One thing that we do is we kind of go through everything, and then about week 4, you get your first assignment, and that first assignment actually will just kind of stack on top of each other to lead up to your final assignment. So I don't give a final assignment like the last 2-3 weeks of the semester. I have it till we build onto it so that you guys can understand it throughout the semester, so that you understand how your project would work just as you would do it in the field. And so for those of you that are taking this class that may not be interior designers or in that major, or even in the architecture department, I have some people that I think are in history department as well. We've changed the curriculum just a little bit, so you don't have to completely do some of the course requirements that we used to have to do in terms of rendering and things like that. We'll get back to that later, because really we want you to focus on how the historic field works. And I think that is a good place for everybody to kind of understand what this class is about. So you will have a project per se, but it is going to be really thought out in the process of understanding building selections, understanding the historic architecture and things like that. If you have any questions, please let me know as I go along. I just try to kind of get through some of this a little bit. I'll have questions at the very end. So if we go back to the home screen, you see the modules again. Each module will be opened up every Thursday. You'll see the assignments. You're able to track your grades up here. Again, if you want to contact the instructor, here's my email address. That's the best way to get a hold of me. In terms of this week for our introduction, we basically have, welcome to historic preservation. And then I'd like each of you to do an introduction to yourself. Again, just asking the questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do in your spare time? What do you enjoy about design, or just history in general? And what are your goals for the class? I've had some students in this class where I had one where they owned a historic home and they just kind of wanted to know what to do with it. And so we've had that. I've had other people that want to go into historic preservation, and they go on that some of these are for the design. So we get a lot of great aspects of what people enjoy. And so again, it's important to let me know kind of what your goals are, and then that way I can kind of tailor it a little bit as well to what's being done. So each module you'll have when you first come in, and we'll talk about what the module is going to be about. And this one, it specifically says people are attracted to historic architecture for a variety of reasons. Some see it as beautiful, others are interested in the heritage it represents, and some individuals see it as environmental terms of offering opportunities to recycle whole structures and neighborhoods and cities. It just kind of goes on to say that people enjoy certain time periods, and sometimes they identify with those time periods. And this course provides an introduction to preservation theory and practices, but it also helps at the end of the semester, you'll be able to identify and document and understand preferred treatments to rehab or restore a building. A lot of this today, we talk about restoration, but a lot of it is rehabbing a building for a different use. I'm sure that you guys have seen, we'll talk about in the semester, but a lot of the times, like, the worst thing that a building can be is empty, because if it's empty, then things can happen, people don't know about it. So if we change the use, maybe from, I had a lot of students that in these projects, they'll come up with things that move from a home to like maybe a coffee shop or a flower store or whatever it is. And we'll talk about the ethics of that. Like, do you bring in different types of things? Does that change the historic identification of it? And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But importantly enough, it's important to a lot of times keep the building standing, and sometimes that might be a different use. So that is kind of a brief introduction to this. It will then go in, you'll see like, here's your learning outcomes for the module, and then you have a to-do list. You'll review the modules, make sure that you purchase the book, and again, introduce yourself. So that's what your assignments are. Hopefully that's pretty easy for this week. And then this part will vary. Sometimes I'll have slides for you to see, and sometimes I'll have a recorded lecture. So I find students like the variation. They don't always like me lecturing and always just reading. So like I said, if it's something where it's a little bit more of a specific topic that needs more items to it to understand it, then oftentimes that's when I'll lecture. So yeah, so I like the variety. A lot of students seem to like the variety. So this one particularly, this is just kind of a slideshow. And really, it's just briefly an introduction. So what are the places in your community that matter to you personally? Is it a museum? Is it a park? What we like to call it is the power of place. So ask yourself, what do these places mean to your life? Why do they matter to you? How do you connect to it? Places basically bring people together, and it also relates our history. And sometimes they can be grand, beautiful buildings like a church or hotel, but oftentimes it's an ordinary place that become meaningful to their stories and memories and depict the history of the community. This one example, and particularly, it talks about a handball court that is actually over in California. And at the end of World War II, there were some immigrants that had come over to LA, and they had been in a Japanese internment camp in Idaho and then moved down, and they were renting a grocery store, and it was next to a handball court, and that was built in the early 1920s. And everyone in the neighborhood would call it Miji's Court. So for decades, the couple worked to make the handball court the center of the community, and they would have dances and parties and food drives. The handball court started falling apart after many years, and after the couple died in 2006, it really began to fall in disrepair, and the city wanted to tear it down. But the residents of the community knew it was an integral part of the community because it represented who they were and their history there. So a group of the community started working with the National Trust of Historic Preservation in LA. And you're going to learn this, is that there's a national organization and then there's local organizations. And so it kind of, we'll show you the difference throughout the semester. But this particular one, they started working with both, and they were able to make the handball court a California landmark in 2012. And they ended up saving, this handball court, and because it helped to define their community and it created those connections. And this really is the heart of preservation, is building these emotional connections. And This quote by Maria Luica, I think says it best. It says, development of emotional bonds with places is a prerequisite of psychological balance and good adjustment. It helps to overcome identity crisis and gives people the sense of stability they need in the ever-changing world. And that really is kind of what this is about. When I was in Utah, I worked with the Historic Preservation Society there, and we worked hard at trying to preserve different buildings throughout the state. Some laws, unfortunately, it's unfortunate because Utah's laws per se aren't as strict as other laws. And in all honesty, that's one reason why I moved to Texas. Texas was one of the very first historical societies, and we'll talk about that actually even in the class. We didn't mean to necessarily move to Texas. It kind of happened with my husband's job as well, but I was looking forward to it because there are more laws in Texas that help with preserving these historical buildings. It's sometimes annoying because there's a lot of red tape you have to go through. Like for instance, right now, I've been working on a museum, and it's a building that is over 250 years old. And we haven't done anything yet in a year because we've just been doing the red tape with the county officials. And that just kind of goes to show you, like sometimes with the laws, you have to understand the laws. And in this class, we're going to go over some of those laws. And again, whether you're in this field or not, understanding the laws can help people with the projects that they're trying to do. And so again, it kind of depends. Like there's some local laws that make it hard and some local laws that make it easy to do this job, but ultimately you want to help save and preserve as much as you can. And this is kind of the reason behind it. So it went from a city to suburb and a suburb to city. And after World War II, with the invention of the car, it made it possible for people to get out of the city and oftentimes hard-hit areas of the city, and they went into the suburbs. And this is where people had access to parks and restaurants. And however, many of the historic homes that existed then began to be knocked down, and people to make way for like more streets and the infrastructure, but people have more land and more privacy, and they thought, oh, I'm living the American dream. But then soon shopping centers and malls and everything started popping up, and meanwhile, all these downtowns and main streets fell into disrepair. There was a lot of ghost towns that started happening. And there was an article that came out about suburbia by historian Kenneth Jackson. And he basically talked about that suburbia had become the quintessential physical achievement of the United States. It perhaps was more representative of its culture with big cars, tall buildings, or professional football. But as suburbs began to flourish, many Americans began to feel that something critical was being lost in their communities around the late 20th century. So some felt that suburbia was an inefficient way to structure a community because there really was not a sense of ownership since it was so sprawled out at this point. And people then started wanting to return to the city and create a sense of ownership. So this millennial generation, your generation, part of my generation, started becoming this driving force where they wanted to bring back restaurants and parks and shops in the last 15 years to making the downtown more of these historic districts. And because of this, more activism in restoring these buildings started to represent the ideal of mixing past generations and future generations and building their community, because they realized it shouldn't just be either or, it should be a common goal between generations. So that's when the historic building made a comeback, and there was a new sense of community ownership, and preservation and restoration started becoming more involved within the communities. Instead of small interest groups, which is what we're going to learn about, it started becoming bigger interest groups and more of a resurgence. So that just kind of gives you, this is where we go. So that just kind of gives you a general overview of what this class is. It's, again, understanding community, understanding how history is involved in that, understanding the architecture that comes involved. And I hope my goal is at the end of this class is that you understand and have the foundation of how you can be more involved in the community, how you can be more involved in understanding the history and the architecture behind it. So that is basically the introduction to the class. Again, go over the syllabus, get the book. We don't go too right out of the gate, but in a couple weeks there will be, you know, a quiz. So make sure you get the book for that, because you do need to keep up on the reading in order to make sure that you do well with it, the quizzes and tests. So are there any questions? Anything at all? Let's see if there's anything in the chat. Okay. Well, awesome, guys. Again, sorry for my computer having glitches at the last minute. So if you don't have any questions, please feel free to email me any questions. As I mentioned, we don't really do a Zoom class again. It's something to where if I need to do any videos, I will to the whole class. But this really was just kind of a great way to introduce yourselves, you know, via Zoom, but also make sure that you do your introduction on the module as well. Okay. All right, you guys, I'm really excited to have you in this class. This is a fun class. I've taught some other classes at SLCC, and this is probably by far my favorite class to teach, because you get really involved in the community. I've had students from this class actually be in other countries as well, which is kind of fun. I had a student a couple semesters ago that lived in Morocco, and she then brought in like we have discussions where you share with the class. Of historic buildings, and it's fun. It's awesome because there's a lot of people that live all over the country that take these classes, so it's fun to kind of see that. All right, you guys. Well, I'm again excited to get to know you guys even more, and you guys get to know me. And if you guys have any questions, please email me. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.